Hi, thanks for letting us in.
Hi there, Lillyanne, one of our presenters, or are you a guest?
I'm the presenter.
Okay, great. I'm a volunteer. I'm just facilitating this Zoom, so I wanted
Oh,
to make
awesome.
sure.
Thank you so much.
No problem. I'm going to step away for a second. I'll be back in about 2 minutes if you need it.
All right. Oh, could I be made co-host by any chance? Oh, sorry.
Yes, I can do that. Let me get that done.
Hey.
Hey. Yeah.
Are people going to trickle in, or are you going to let in non-panelists in a batch?
Ooh, that's a good question. We have a volunteer from Trust who may decide that.
Nice.
Yeah, I've just been admitting people as they show up.
Okay.
Does anyone else need to be made a co-host?
No, I'll just be the one presenting. So
Okay, great.
thank you. Hi.
Hello.
I'm giving you all flowers.
Whoa, how'd you do that?
I renamed everyone.
My video was off.
Hi, Pati.
Hey,
How's it going?
it's going good. Busy.
Huh?
Busy.
Yeah.
It's hard when it's nice outside to be that busy.
I know. I just went outside for like 10 minutes and just sat there. Because I was like, I need this.
I was guessing you were gonna do this outside. I'm like, out of everyone, Randy's probably gonna be outside with their phone. But
I'm tempted. I might. But then as soon as I sat outside, of course, someone pulled out a power tool and then I was like, okay, fine.
typical Portland.
I know. I'm like, you want to get productive now?
Yeah.
That's my definition of a beautiful day in Portland. It's like power tools.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, ah.
Yeah. Ugh.
Hi, Nolani. I just saw you come in. We're letting participants join in early, but feel free just to settle. Yeah, I'm just gonna share my screen. It's like a little like entertainer.
I'm gonna keep my camera off, but we will have some people in the room with me that are going to be watching the presentation.
Oh, for sure. So there's an in-person group too.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Good to know.
Yeah, that we're probably on a big screen in the mall somewhere.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Midnight.
Hello there, Edie. How's everyone?
Doing good. How are you?
Doing good.
Wow, that's fancy.
Yeah.
You can see what.
Oh, you can play the
Alright.
radio too, but it can be a pretty loud. Ridhi knows this one. I always put it up for my online workshops. People
Is this a live dashboard, like dash cam from around the world?
I've been trying to figure out if it's live, but I don't think it is. I think it's pre-recorded taxi people who submitted it, and then it's like linked with like live radio.
From that place.
Yeah.
So cool. Thanks for showing us this.
Super cool.
Drive and listen.heroku app.
Oh yeah, I'll put it in the chat.
Nice. Oh, that's India. Hello. Oh, it looks so much more orderly than it actually is. This is not a busy street. Okay, now we're talking.
Yeah, there people driving on the opposite side.
Oh yeah.
Where is this?
Let me look for some signboards. Oh, oops. I can't see the license plate. DL Delhi.
Okay.
That's Delhi. Or at least it's a Delhi license plate.
Wow,
Hey
I'm
Michelle,
like,
interesting.
I'll give you a flower too.
oh,
Delhi looks so orderly.
yeah. I'm like, is this Delhi though? It's fine.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Oh, what about Havana?
This
All right, in about 2 minutes, I'm going to give the introduction and then I'll pass it along to all of you.
sounds good. Thank you. Also, what is your name? I don't think we introduced each other sorry.
Sorry about that. My name is Ophelia.
Ophelia.
Here. Oh,
Hi, Ophelia.
hi.
Okay, I think my favorite one has been Switzerland. Just the mountains. This is definitely.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Whoa.
Hmm. Okay. You may be muted, Ophelia. So if you are talking, we may not hear. I think they said that they were going to introduce, right? I was going to go ahead, but I feel like I don't want to talk over them. Okay. I think I'm going to go ahead for it. Ophelia, I think I'm going to go ahead and start, if that's okay.
Yes, sorry, we just got everyone in here.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know. I didn't want to talk over you or anything. Yeah.
No, you're totally fine. Here, welcome to the 2023 Oregon Active Transportation Summit, Move into Action. Our session will start now. I first wanted to remind you that we have a social event this evening, which is our Move into Action Pitch Fest at 6:30. We'll have pizza and popcorn for sale, listen to a bunch of fun and creative active transportation related pechicuchas. And now onto our session, or artists organizing in the streets. I'd love to have you all start by introducing yourselves. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I have a couple slides to prep us and warm up the space. I don't know how questions or engagement works, but if you all have access to the computer somehow and want to talk to us directly or put in the chat, like, I'm more than welcome that. So I first want to start off with honoring the land where you are, and our home for this online panel discussion is physically located on servers owned or contracted by Zoom, while our bodies are elsewhere. Both our bodies and servers take up space on unceded territories. I know that some folks are in person and online right now, but just to warm up the chat and to get folks sharing resources, I'd love for you to share in the chat while I read the rest of the acknowledgement. Just links to follow, donate, attend, or share support our community members. Alrighty, so currently I am on unceded territories of Cowlitz, Banza Chinook, and many other nations of the Nitchewana, so-called Columbia River, and so-called East Portland, Oregon. Another acknowledgement is that all of our social environments matter, especially in spaces of learning and creativity. As artists who organize on the streets, we would like to honor the sacrifices of Black and Brown communities who came to Oregon, faced with the oppression of entering a white-only state. Black and Brown Oregonians built our industries of logging, shipping, farming, arts and culture, and so many more. For generations, Black and Brown Oregonians have been leading our communities towards justice. At the same time, generations of harm have been caused by the legislative and carceral state, including the erasure of thriving communities of Vanport, Alberta, Albina, and many others through redlining, gentrification, and displacement. Many others include communities east of I-205, where thriving undocumented immigrant and refugee communities are now fighting to keep their health, homes and businesses against gentrification, displacement, non-relational infrastructure, a growing urban heat island, and more. We honor these communities by committing our personal work against internal settler colonialism, US imperialism, and white supremacy, creating art rooted in relational organizing, shifting and questioning power structures, showing love through action, and building solidarity infrastructures on and off the streets. So I'm gonna go ahead and introduce myself, and please feel free to keep warming up the chat. I'm Lillyanne, AKA LP. I use they, she pronouns. I was on Maria Sipin's panel last OAT Summit critiquing committees. I've been cultural organizing and art making in so-called Portland since 2016. And I use my art to shift resources and credit for my communities and use the concept of neighborhoods as material for my practice and a space to cultivate relationships. I'm back to the summit today to carve space for 5 artists who've been deep in our local communities and who've been weaving webs of care that all of us in this room are most likely at least 1 degree away from or currently within. I'll be introducing each of them, and then we'll be moving on to a panel discussion and an open Q&A. I encourage folks to take screenshots, photos, form relationships with these artists afterwards, and recommend others to engage with these artists. I hope you enjoy, and if you have any questions or comments, like I mentioned, fire them up in the chat or feel free to interrupt us at any time. So first up is Michelle Fujii, who's a local taiko artist and co-director of Unit Sozo. I was lucky enough to be part of her collaborative project Rhythm as an East Portland cohort member, where we use our beings and bodies to connect with each other and express our needs for pedestrian safety in East Portland. Michelle and her collaborator Toru spent weeks intimately getting to know us and curating a space for us to thrive and feel empowered through sharing meals, being outdoors, trainings on bystander intervention, processing trauma, and self-defense. And I'm also going to warm up the chat with my own stuff. And here's a link to that project. Next up is Becca Kauffman, who's a social practice artist with a background in multidisciplinary performance and recently settled down in so-called Portland. Becca and I are classmates at PSU's Art and Social Practice MFA program. It's been incredible to witness Becca's magic in activating crosswalks alongside local youth using music, performance, youth design, high-vis vests, and more. You can experience their work on Friday, June 9th from 3 to 4 p.m. at Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. School. Becca is also compiling a Music for Crosswalks album and is looking for people to support, and you can follow their work at this link. Next up is Ridhi. Ridhi DeCruz is a learner, facilitator, artist, and so much more. Ridhi was one of my teachers in the Atabey BIPOC herbalism apprenticeship, where they taught me how to find wholeness in myself with community, and has co-led the program's legacy in the Moon and Mirror apprenticeship program, where folks of color can learn the foundations of plant medicine through the lenses of intersectionality, decolonization, and liberation. Ridhi has shown up in numerous ways in the community as a doer, friend, and creative. You can follow more of their work via the links in the chats. And I'm definitely going to copy all these links and somehow send them to you all, so we do not lose them. And next up is Midnite, who's a root worker and artist whose work has been shown locally in New Orleans. Midnite has also been one of my classmates in the Atabey program, where I got to experience their ability to create and curate a container filled with imagination and wisdom to hold and feed people, an emphasis on feeding people. Midnite is currently working with honoring and untangling the overuse of tobacco. You can also learn more about their work here. Another link. Next up, Patricia Vazquez Gomez is an artist who's deeply embedded in communities of the ancient Tenochtitlan and so-called Portland. She was also my professor at PSU, where she taught me how to embody art as research. Her projects include working with Northeast Portland youth and families and culturally supporting and practicing the Yucatec Mayan indigenous language. She also has worked with local Mexican youth and families in rural Oregon to start a fake institution called the Newburgh Department of Friendship, where they interrogate the question, what questions have you always wanted to ask a white person that you have never had the opportunity to ask? You can learn more about Patty's work here. Awesome. So that's all the introductions, and I want to get started on the panel questions because we have a lot to ask. And I put the panel questions on here, and I wanted to share the slide in the chat as well for folks to take home. But I'll just stop sharing my screen and share the slides as well. Tech. Okay. I'll share the slides. So, alrighty, everyone. So, the first question I have, it's what questions are you currently exploring in your creative practice, and how do the questions guide your creative process? And whoever would like to answer first, and we can popcorn it from there. Patty, I see that your mic is off first, and
Oh, so I win.
Yeah.
I think so for sure. This is a very relevant question for me because I'm usually working on a few different projects, and for every project that I do, I try to craft a few questions that are going to help me guide the process I'm working on. So, and they're very specific of a context, of a group of people, or of an issue that I'm researching. But I think overall, I am very interested in the social function of art. So what are the contributions that art can make to our social worlds? Because part of what I'm exploring it's the issue that of art being co-opted, and put into very specific and enclosed spaces, whether it's a gallery or a museum, or an institution, right? But then what happens when you try to liberate art from those constraints, from those walls that usually keep it inside, right? And then you put it in the social space. And then, and I think a lot of the examples of the artists here present are very good into what happens if you just put it in the streets, what happens if you just put it in a community center, or what happens when you put it in a school, right? So for me, that's a question that's very productive to continue exploring, because it gives me it helps me, for example, build audiences for what I do, right? So not expect that people are just going to come to whatever I do because I'm amazing or whatever, but actually taking the work of building the audience, or being very intentional about selecting a space or a place where my projects are going to function. So I hope that helps.
Mm-hmm. Ridhi, do you want to go for it? I see you nodding.
Thanks, Elfie. Thank you, Patty. I'll say that a question that I ask myself and ask of any process, and it's not I try to keep that question alive, is how am I orienting towards personal and collective liberation? Because I feel like it's easy to get kind of caught up in thinking that we're doing the thing as is a product at the end of something, end of some process, but then to forget to embody and imbue the process with the same thing that we're all trying to work on. So for example, the other day I was laughing with some of my friends and colleagues. We were like, yeah, we're talking about, we run this program, we're like really holding a space for people to come together and to do healing work. And then we were like busy with the work, and we're like, oh, but we're all needing a little bit of extra help, like to feed ourselves right now, because things feel really busy. So the work, basically like the work outside being also reflective of the work that we're doing on the inside. And so I think orienting and continuing to keep oriented towards healing and liberation has been really impactful and transformative for me as an organizer, because I think it has helped, it shifts everything. It helps shift why I do what I do, how I do it, and helps me stay engaged, I think, in ways that feel more rooted in what I'm trying to put out in the world, and that I get to taste that for myself as well. So it's been a really, it's a deep practice, and it will be a lifelong practice. I have no answers, right? Like it's just part of the practice of ensuring that burnout, I'm like keeping my eye on like how am I showing up in spaces, what kind of capacity, what kind of quality of presence do I have, and things like that. Like how am I actually being in touch with myself as I'm connecting with others. Thank you.
Hi. When I think about the questions that I'm exploring in my creative practice right now, I'm really into the natural world from the perspective of communication, and how the natural world communicates on a consistent and very powerful basis, and how that impacts my return communication with the natural world. And I'm not speaking from an intellectual perspective at all. I'm speaking from the perspective of like a child. Who are you? Who am I in reference to you? Those kinds of questions are the kinds of questions that I am asking. And in particularly in this time in my life, as I move closer to the end of my life, I find that I am more childlike in my questions, and more willing to accept the magic and the mysticism of the natural world. And so it informs my practice in so many different ways. I find that I am constantly in a state of awe, actually, about what I am experiencing. And so I see it on many different levels, from not only who I am as a person outside of the construct of race or the construct of gender or any of those constructs. I see myself now as being in alignment with the natural world. It makes me see myself different. It makes me see my processes in life different. And so I'm just, my practices go from meditation to just simply utilizing my senses, and not only my 5 senses, but my intuitive sense to know a thing. I just got back from Sitka, and we were in a cabin, and we were really surrounded by these huge trees. And as a child, well, not really as a child, as a young adult, I used to think that trees talk to me, but I was also a lawyer, and that didn't make any sense, or not in the not in that construct anyway. So because I'm not doing that work anymore, it allows me to expand my consciousness and to accept that trees actually do communicate with us, as do other parts of the natural world. So I'm learning to talk. I'm learning my ABCs again. I'm learning numbers again. And that is really an exciting proposition.
Yeah, wow. I'm just really inspired. Thank you. And I think when seeing this question, one of the things that has been really deep inside me, and actually it's been residing in me sort of as a foundational question and inquiry, I think ever since I even began starting to play taiko. This instrument was a place that really spoke to my own identity. And I know that it has been almost a place of salvation for myself as I have excavated myself as a Japanese American. And sort of the question that I continue to explore is this idea of our cultural evolution. And I have been in kind of Midnite, when you were saying, who am I? Has been this eternal question. But as I have continued to travel, I studied in Japan. In fact, I just came back from Japan, and for the first time visited my ancestral, this one artifact that I had received from my grandma, this ancestral location that I had always wanted to go to, which is going back to who am I? And understanding that it's not, I am just Japanese and going back to my homeland, but I am a combination of complexity of histories that is who I am. And I think about it for all of our identities. I think of when we were teaching in schools and I see children of many different backgrounds, and I think how they're thinking about their own identity growing up. I think about the idea of how do we build, and I use this word a little bit loosely in the sense that sometimes it can feel very rigid, but the word of tradition. And I say that because sometimes we use it to preserve and like stays really stuck somewhere. But I think about this word of building new, evolving traditions that is thinking about some of that is remembering our histories, but also has that expansion of expressing really the here and now. And I guess I'll just lastly say, I've been really inspired to think about how some of these folk traditions that have lasted hundreds and hundreds of years. I just, as mentioned, went to my ancestral sort of like a location that I learned more about. And there was this one dance that I watched that was like over 500 years old. And I was watching this and witnessing and experiencing it and realizing that a lot of that particular dance was created specifically for that specific place and space. And it was to honor the mountain that was nearby and the water that flows down. And it was in so much recognition of exactly that one place. And I think about, where do I live? And can I create something that's deeply embedded in recognizing the entire element in which I am residing? So yeah, that's what I'm in inquiry about.
Wow, thank you for that story, Michelle. I just got chills. I'm so inspired. Yeah, I guess a question that I think is sort of related to that in a way that I've been working through is, how can we subvert power structures through public spectacles and street performance and movement in public space? And the power structures in particular, I'm thinking of like kind of primarily are like between pedestrians and drivers, between kids and adults, and between citizens and bureaucracy. And with the Safety Patrol, which is this group of 5th grade crossing guards that I've been working with in Northeast, the work that we're doing is about creating a sense of embodied agency out in the world, and helping them understand the kind of power that they have, both as 10-year-olds who are telling adults what to do, and also the kind of power that they could have as citizens in the place that they live now and forevermore. So that shows up in some ways as creative imagination exercises that we've done, where we talk about other ways of thinking about the crosswalk, like overlaying a metaphor on top of it, looking at just like what the stripes on the ground even look like, and how you could think of it as a bridge that connects one city block island to another, and how it encourages and enables mobility, and thinking about all the places that we can go, all the ways that we can travel and freely move in the world if we're safe, and the kind of value of keeping one another safe. And by doing these like public spectacles, we're working on a parade. To me, I'm interested in making the street a less mundane and more fun place, and kind of soften the hard lines of this standardized visual language of traffic direction. And also know that like the streets are brought to life by our participation, and sharing public space out in the street is this incredible opportunity to develop our ability to coexist and cooperate with strangers and people that we might never encounter otherwise.
Yeah, Becca, anytime I see one of your works, you like immediately add play so smoothly and just like seamlessly that, yeah, it's just really cool. Anyways, the next question, I really thought about the specific question because, yeah, there's learning from each of you. You all just have a very thorough line of like a moral compass of where you all want to go with your practice. And just like also you all have like pretty longstanding relationships in your communities, and understanding boundaries that you want to keep for yourself, for your communities and against institutions. So yeah, I wanted to ask these questions to learn more about that and share some more wisdoms around that. And the question is, when should there be structure for art and artists to lead engagement and or organizing in and outside of it, institutional initiatives? What does this structure look like for you? And I'll copy and paste it in the chat.
Well, I'll respond to that right now. I think there should always be structures in for art and artists and institutional initiatives, because to me, artists keep things honest, and they a lot of times corporations have departments, ethics departments, and creative departments, but an artist represents ethics and creativity. But in a very, for lack of a better word, artistic way, in a way in which the way you look at the world is not black and white. Artists bring in colors. And as we move through how corporations exist in the world, they exist in black and white. And the way in which they have interacted with the larger world has been that same way. And as a result, it has excluded large swaths of people and ideas. And I think as we move more to from a seen, so-called seen world to an unseen world, there is more space available for artists to come into those institutions and change and become change agents. And what that looks like is really dependent on both how the artist chooses to interact, as opposed to how the corporation chooses for the artist to interact. And if they take that position, then it's the same black and white. So yeah, that's how I see that.
I can maybe continue on, if that's okay. And maybe I'll talk specifically about my experience working within like Transportation Bureau, like led placemaking stuff, where something that former Commissioner Hardesty said really sat with me. And she said something to the effect of how it's the responsibility of, it's not the responsibility of government to be leading social change. That's not where innovation and transformation is going to be rooted, right? That's going to come from outside, from community, and I really think from artists. So then looking at what role these institutions, these structures can have, I think, is to not get in the way at best, or at least, and then in other ways to remove barriers and to provide more of a kind of more soil for that change and transformation to root into and to grow. And so when I look at like how placemaking has been evolving, just placemaking as one aspect of art making and in the streets, when I look at how placemaking has evolved, I feel like it's definitely I think there's always some confusion about where is it being sourced from, like where is the impulse for creativity kind of being drawn from. And I feel like when that's like government saying we want placemaking to happen, as opposed to what are communities dreaming and longing for, and already having some, like there's such deep wells of knowledge and creativity that I think are being silenced. I don't even want to say like are just, we don't see them, but I feel like even how we perceive and frame creativity and art and social change is around certain kind of like sanitized and like restrictive lenses. And so I think, again, there's like a transformative quality for these groups, these agencies, to really be humble about the role, and to I would also say to loosen up seemingly tight budget strings, because again, it's like art is always, it's almost like this add-on, like at the end kind of a thing to, but then in terms of budget, but I would say in terms of communication, it's like it leads with that, with the art and the color and the splash and the community engagement. But then when you look at how is that actually represented in the budget, how is it being valued? It's not backed up. So there's so much more I could say, but I heard someone else say, and so I'm like, yes, please add on.
Oh no, I'm agreeing. That's why I was the one who said yes.
Cool. Maybe, can I add one more thing? Okay. The other thing I want to add is that also, like, because I feel like there's a pendulum swing. Sometimes it's like, no, we can't do that. There's too much, like there's budget cuts, this, that, and the other. That's one side of it. But then I've also heard this like dangerous kind, for me, I feel like dangerous kind of rhetoric around like, we'll get to a yes, you tell us what you want to do. So the stage is set for like anything, the sky is the limit. And then followed by, no, accept that, and that, and that, and that. And so then it, like, I would say as a, someone who is not from Turtle Island, I'm from India, like, I'm an immigrant here, like I have a particular relationship with government here, there's trauma, there's like, and so then to be told that the sky is the limit, but then when I'm actually trying to move forward, to be met with so many no's is very jolting to the creative practice. And it feels like I'm doing something wrong, when in fact the stage, it was set up in a way to not support and nourish and nurture what is wanting to come through. And so I feel like also it's really important for institutions and collectives like that are in particular industries to understand what capacity they actually have for transformative processes, and not to overcommit, because one of the most trust eroding things I think that I've witnessed over and over again is to promise the world and then not deliver. And then you're also talking about communities who've also have been traumatized by, so like, I don't need to get into all the things, but the relationship is not, there isn't trust, right? And so then it's another cut in that, in what could have been a restorative or like going towards repair becomes just another way for, yes, like I knew it, this is not going to happen, and more distrust ensues. So it's not, hey, we're going to fix everything, everything's going to change overnight, like not thinking in those terms. Change does and can take time. So I also think there's a balancing of how much we say that we can commit to really changing. And then if we like go beyond that, of course, that's awesome, but not say we can do so much and then under deliver. I just feel like our communities really deserve better than that.
And I loved how you mentioned the gaslighting part, Ridhi. Like, I wouldn't know a lot of the things that organizations have done, like, that made me feel bad, and I like blame myself. And I would like talk to and confide in like you, for example, and like you would give me the language to navigate that and be like, hey, actually, no, it's like them and they're under delivering. And I think like as like a new rookie artist, I feel like having this kind of wisdom is much needed, that like, you know, artists need their own advocate. And then also if you're going to hire an artist, they're going to be a fire starter and they're going to ask these questions, and you as like the hirer need to like be prepared to answer them transparently. Yeah, I don't want to take up the stage. I'm going to pass it. Becca and Patty, I see both of y'all like have unmuted things during.
I can tag along because I think some of the things that were shared before made me think. I feel like my favorite way of working, it's when I can do things my way. When somebody like makes some resources available and I get to use them in a way that's appropriate for the people or the situation I'm working with, but also for my own capacity even, you know. Like I like to work over like a really long time, like long periods of time. I like to take time building relationships and, you know, like poking into whatever situation I'm working, and just let like the art emerge from that process, rather than me coming like, hey, we're gonna do this. And then like try to fit everything within my own preconceived idea of what I'm gonna do. It's a very different process. And a lot of times in working with institutions, that's not possible because of, you know, a whole lot of like limitations related to funding, to timing. Timing is a huge thing, in my opinion, when like there are these lofty expectations about community engagement and you have 6 months to do things. And I'm just like, I can't, you know, that's not how I work. That's not how I've seen things become meaningful. You just gotta give it time, you know, and because otherwise I feel like a lot of what happens or can end up happening, which is actually the opposite of what you want, is like kind of forcing people to do something because it has to happen quickly, right? Which I find very problematic. So I definitely prefer, and you know, it's not always easy to get an adequate amount of resources to do things. So you have to kind of paste up, you know, this little grant here and this little grant here, and then just try to piece it together to do something that leads to some meaningful results. So it's definitely a little challenging. I wish there were more institutions willing to fund things that don't need a fiscal sponsor, for example, or that don't need necessarily an organizational structure, because I also feel like it's very it gives you more liberty, more freedom, more autonomy when you are doing things outside certain structures. Like particularly if you are working with people that have suffered trauma, that people that you know, like are undocumented, like there's like a whole lot of things that you know you can't do if you are within an organization. So let's leave it there.
Well, Ridhi and Patti have far more real life experience being artists in residence in institutions than I do, but I just wanted to throw this out there for our audience here, that inside of social practice artwork, which is what I and LP are studying and where Patti teaches, there is this precedence and this concept of becoming kind of like installing yourself as an artist in residence in unlikely places, and using that literal creative artistic license to work outside the lines and introduce more imaginative ways of functioning in a certain system, and propose that kind of as like an outside consultant who has the clarity of not being totally enmeshed inside of this place. And there's precedence for that for artists in residence in city agencies. And I think maybe it sounds like, Ridhi, you've been an artist in residence at Peapod. I couldn't quite tell. No? Okay, well, I think that should exist. And there is in New York City, there is a system set in place for artists in residence of rotating city agencies every year. And then, of course, there's the sort of like godmother of social practice, one of them of social practice art, who was the artist in residence of the Department of Sanitation, and just doing actual art projects there. But I feel like that the perspective of a creative mind inside of these really rigid places is so valuable. It sounds like there can be a lot to push up against. So yes, ideally people know what they're getting into and they invite an artist to infiltrate. But I think that everyone should have one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna add to this question too, and I really agree with all that's been spoken. And you know, when I saw this question, when should there be a structure? I was like, I agree. I'm so thank you, Midnite, for saying all the time. I totally agree. And I just want to say, like, for me, I feel like this the systems that we have sort of been under, which is highly capitalistic and highly just in this black and white outcome based sort of institutionalized practice, I think I'm excited to see that there's been questioning of how this is actually helping our communities and our own well-being and our healing. And the only way that we can actually disrupt some of the ways in which this history of toxicity that has existed is by including and collaborating with artists. Mm-hmm. We need to find more creative pathways. And I do feel like right now, it's almost like I'm kind of feeling like right now we're in an awkward phase where we're like, oh, this is great. And so institutions are starting to, not that it hasn't existed, but I feel like it's becoming a little bit more prominent to bring in creatives into spaces for projects or for initiatives or for different kinds of explorations. And, you know, I'm excited to be a part of potentially this awkward phase that will build this as a practice of long-term ongoing ways in which we will continue to question and build some places that are healing for all of our people. And so in some ways, I have this sort of like longer term trajectory of where we're at right now. And my hope that we don't give up on this, that we keep bringing in artists. There may be ways where we could find more specificity on, you know, having a better creative collaboration. But I am excited that right now there is an interest to be doing these in these spaces that it doesn't feel like it has existed. And that I want to see let's just do more of it. Let's continue to do more and more and more. And hopefully we will find better ways. One of them is resources of time and money. Another is the idea and practice of collaboration, because I have a lot of thoughts on that. The word collaboration is sometimes misinterpreted, and it does mean that both and all parties are participating in it. We're having conversations, and lots of times it's like, here you go, but it's not an isolated thing. The artists are part of it with these institutions too. So anyways, I just feel like we're ironing things out. We're getting awkward. We're getting to know each other. We're putting this in, and it's exciting to see it just happen. It's happening. So I want to celebrate and know that there's a lot more to do.
Michelle, you basically like introed the next question, and I'd love for you to just continue talking and answering this one first. But how do you create structures of care or collaboration and navigate competition in quote unquote art worlds?
Yeah, you know, I really resonated with this question, and like it really hit me because you know, competition is one of those dehumanizing techniques that is not going to build healthy communities. And unfortunately, a lot of our histories are based upon this foundation of competition. I want to just recognize that we all have been colonized into this idea of competition. And I myself have had to deconstruct, and I'm not even at a place in which I can say I understand how not to sometimes feel competitive. How can I share my resources and feel okay about it, because we live in so much scarcity. Anyways, so how do we create it? One of the things that I'll just say, and I learned this with at this leadership institute that I did with urban bushwomen, and I want to make sure I give that reference. One of the first things that we did with 120 of us in this, and we actually created within this leadership institute this amazing sort of staged performance near the end, and I just was inspired and bring this forward in all of my practice. And first is to really spend time in asset mapping. What is it that we all bring forward so that we build our whatever that we're doing, working together with all the folks that are stakeholders or participants? What is it that we all can bring forward, and how do we celebrate that? Because it's not about this scarcity model, it's about the abundant model. And so we need to start with identifying the abundance of what we have. And it's not just money, and it's not just time. And so for me, I would just say, taking the time to recognize each other and our contributions and what we can, and to remember those strengths throughout the entire process that you're working with someone.
Well, addressing the issue of competition, it's just so redundant in the modern world. You know, competition brings up issues of jealousy and feelings of inadequacy. When you see someone whose art form is great, or who has managed to somehow bring their art form from their studio into the larger world, then you may feel some kind of way. But I think if we can learn, and this is a constant thing that you have to do to reframe it, is that you're not jealous, you're inspired. and then you can take it from there, because that's what any interaction is meant to do, is to light a fire. It is not meant to make you feel lesser. Even a person who intends to make you feel lesser, from a universal standpoint, it is to inspire you to open a door that you have kept closed, failed to go down a corridor that you need to go down. So when I find myself feeling the green monster, what I have to do is sit with myself for a moment and see where it is that I feel like I'm not expressing myself more, or that I need to, an area that is calling me. And so I have to reframe it. I think that's the best way to look at that. And how we create structures around that is constantly, I think we have to acknowledge each other, the greatness of each other, and ourselves within the community of that greatness, and that there is no lesser, because from my history, there's always been the concept of scarcity, lesser, not fullness. And those are all lies that have been used to capitalize on each other. It's not something necessarily that we are born with like that. And so that's my response to that. And I say that also saying that I'm not there. I am walking there, and I am challenging myself there. Yes, that's it.
Thank you, Midnite. I think that what you said about the difference between jealousy and competition, or jealousy and inspiration, feels very, very, very true. I feel like even as an exercise, you know, if you catch yourself feeling jealous, what would it mean to turn that into inspiration can be very powerful. I think just to even like try to shift a little bit and create like different neuronal connections around that. I think, you know, like I've been very blessed, I think, to have a lot of opportunities coming through, like other artists I know that are friends, that are maybe curators, right? I feel like I've done like quite a bit of work based on other people opening a space for me, right? Oh, I have this project going on. Maybe you can do part of this, and I try to do that also, you know, as I get opportunities to make opportunities available inside my opportunities for other people. And I believe that that's actually very beautiful in terms of like spreading this network, spreading this, you know, these roots of generosity, and maybe, you know, that will help with healing from competition, from the competition virus.
So you all, we have like less than probably 5-ish minutes. So I'm gonna, sorry, Ridhi and Becca, I'm gonna skip it, but I think that a lot of things are covered on it already. I think that especially folks, we talked a lot about what's inspiring our practice as well, I think, through all this. And I think that was one of our questions. So I'm gonna move on to a question that I really wanted to hear y'all's answer to. And it's, if you have just right amount of resources, what would be your mini dream project? And Ridhi, Becca, feel free to answer this one first.
Becca, do you want to go? Me? No. Oh gosh. With just the right amount of resources. I think yeah, like I have these flashes of just the wisdom coming in from everyone, and around this urgency around time, like just being able to have, I feel like time is such a rare and precious resource, and just being able to focus on relationship building around like what what would feel nourishing to us, what would feel healing to us, and can we be supportive, like doing the kind of relationship work, tending the web of people who are in this creative practice, the elders, the young people, like, you know, just across like multi-generational organizing. And so I think I don't, you know, just like how I kind of approached the first question, I think for me, the product feels like a happy byproduct of a really strong, resilient process of working together with community to be like, what do we want? And I don't think I've ever gotten the spaciousness, the time spaciousness, the obviously that is heavily linked to budgets as well, like to be able to craft that that sacred space for us to come together without like these deadlines, right? Like deadline, even the word, the phrase deadline, like just, you know, I'm just like, why? Like, why? And so that we can just allow for this long-term thinking of how we are a movement and a culture, a living culture. Michelle, when you were talking about tradition as a living tradition, it's like, yeah, that's culture, right? And so how are we actually opening up spaces and breathing room within our own lungs, within our own bodies, and within the bodies of culture, like our collectives and our institutions, for inspiration and intuition and wisdom, healing, art, culture to actually flow through them. Like, I think that's kind of what feels like I'm like invoking. Yeah, thank you.
I love the invocation. Mine might be a little literal, and LP mentioned it in their intro for me, but I have this dream project called Music for Crosswalks that is a compilation album of 30 to 60-second songs that would accompany a walk signal when people are crossing the street at an intersection. And so my mini dream project would be really, the resource I'd be looking for would be mostly permission and willingness from PBOT to actually install this somewhere inside the city of Portland. I come from New York City. I've lived there for 14 years and I just got here. And I've been really struck by how unpeopled the streets kind of are, just walking down the sidewalk. I'm used to seeing hordes of other people on the sidewalks, and often I'm alone. And I'd love to bring more energy and just like human presence and personality, I guess, to the experience of walking or rolling down the sidewalk and across the street. And I think adding music and soundtrack and like a creative contribution in that way could really do the job.
Midnite, did you want to go for it before?
Well, I'm actually very excited about this project that I hope to bring at the end of the year. And it is identifying, well, being spoken to by the plant world and utilizing plants in fashion. There is a woman that does, I guess, designs fashion wear from the roots of plants. It is absolutely breathtaking. And so I'm working on that, and then utilizing to design clothing, utilizing plants, the colors of plants, an actual plant material, then pairing that with culinary offerings and medicinal offerings. So it's a full and scent. So it's a full sense sense overload, the plant world. So, and utilizing the seasons because she changes her dress every day. But she certainly changes it during the season changes. And so that's what I am working on. And if money was no object, wow, that's all I can say. Yeah.
Alrighty, Patty and Michelle.
Do we still have time?
We're going for it because
Okay.
we're
Oh man, I was like thinking, oh, I'm not gonna have time for me.
Oh, no.
I'm
We're
thinking
making
about it.
time. I'm co-host of the Zoom. We're not closing. Sorry, Ophelia.
All right. I need to think about it. Will be night.
Would you like me to go while you're thinking?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, wow, what a dream. I really I dream of first of all, to have a time of an artistic experience. I'm really into the idea, or not even just the idea, the act of doing something in togetherness over a duration of time that allows you, a person in a group, to transcend into a new place of awareness. And yeah, when you speak of not thinking about resources, like who has the time for that? So first question that, I know that I'm asked, but this idea that we could co-create something that we all, whoever is participating, would be doing this action until everyone finds something and discovers something. And it could be as simple as walking together over a long duration of time, or something just as everyday as that, but it also could be something co-created that would allow those that were part of that to truly experience, not just learn it one time, but to do it over and over. And I'm really inspired by the idea of what does repetition do with deepening oneself. So that would be a dream.
Oh yeah, to do the walking rhythm project again with you would be amazing. It just happened once, but to be continued. All right, Patty, feel free.
All right, I thought of something because I feel like I have a lot of mini and not so many dreams. But one thing that I would love to see happen at some point, there's such a scarcity of a space in Portland lately with everything getting so expensive. And I guess just as Michelle was saying, I dream that at some point, I'm gonna get a hold of some space and I'll make it available for people to be together and do things, whatever they want to do, whether they want to practice something that they're working on, whether they just want to like get together and have conversations over tea or play music, or because I definitely see, even in my close community, how hard it is to access space these days. Like if you want to just have an event, with your friends, it's like, it's kind of getting impossible. So that's one of my dreams, even if the space is small, something that's just available to anybody who wants to use it.
I'd be yes on that project. Oh,
I was just like, yeah, BIPOC centered space in Portland. Oh my, OMG. How difficult.
Alrighty, y'all. It's 5:50. We went 5 minutes over. Sorry, Ophelia. But oh my gosh, I had such a fun time with you all. I feel like since there weren't that many folks on Zoom, we were like all hanging out in like a room just intimately. But I know that if folks have questions, we didn't really get to hear them, and there's the chat. I hope that you all got the link to the slides, or that somehow you can take a picture of it. I can also share my email if anyone wants the slides. And if you all wanted to get connected with anyone, feel free to just reach me. But yeah, that's a wrap, y'all. Oh, great. Awesome. Yes, feel free to warm up the chat.
Thank you all so much to our presenters for such a potent conversation today. And we also want to thank our 2023 sponsors. If you're interested in seeing any of the other presentations or descriptions, room assignments, or the recording of this presentation, you can go to SCED. That is where we're keeping all of the information. There's also printouts of our schedule available in Marshall's at the registration desks too. We are going to be transitioning to our Pechacuchas party and event after this, but thank you so much for to our presenters, and I will leave the Zoom on for about 5 minutes before I close it out, but I'm going to stop